Past. Rasmus Lerdof is the creator of PHP, which was released back in 1994. Eventually, PHP was rewritten by Lerdof along with Zeev Sarasky and Andy Gutmans in 1997, and in later years by other programmers. Lerdof was a Danish computer programmer. Well, he still is a Danish computer programmer. From a picture I saw of him on Wikipedia, he wears glasses and has great teeth. He worked for big companies like Yahoo and WePay and is now working for Etsy. He's also very pro-startup. He states specifically that PHP is focused on web development, but as I stated before, it can be used to make other APIs. He actually tweeted the following, quote, "More fun to show up unannounced in person. I've done that a few times to PHP user groups," unquote. How cool is that? Here's an excerpt, SitePoint interview. SitePoint, what was your first contact with the open source movement, and what is it about open source that got you hooked? Lerdof, well, back in the early and mid-90s, the term, quote, open source, unquote, did not exist. Quote, free software, unquote, existed, of course, and I had been playing with Linux almost since the very first release in 1991. Previously, I was using QNX and Xenix and then started to fiddle with Minix until Linux rescued me. I don't think I was ever really hooked by a movement. When you don't have the money to buy SCO Unix and you can download something that works and even find people who can help you get it up and running, how can you beat that? SitePoint. Which web servers runs PHP the best? Apache or something else? And which platform runs PHP the best? Linux/Intel, Solaris/Spark, or another? Lerdof. This all comes down to what gets the most attention, I think. Most people use Linux, Intel with Apache. This means that bugs on that platform are discovered by the developers themselves early on, and the end user is unlikely to hit something that the developers haven't run into already. Other mainstream Unix platforms such as Solaris or Spark and FreeBSD or Intel with Apache are right up there as well. The following interview can be found at the SitePoint website at sitepoint.com/phps-creator-Rasmus-Lerdof. Present, Chapter 3. Variables are case-sensitive words that will eventually hold or contain data you give or assign to it, initializing it without a need for a declaration operator like var. Proper variable names should be clear and concise, and camel casing or separating words with underscores makes joining words in a variable name clear and easy. The values variables hold can be changed throughout the script from actions within the code or from reassignment by the programmer. All PHP variables begin with a $sign and cannot contain any spaces, nor start with numbers or other symbols, only letters or an underscore. Rule of thumb, always use lowercase letters for variable names to prevent case-related mistakes. An equal sign operator assigns a value to that variable. There are 8 types of data in PHP. Scalar data types such as integer, string, float, and boolean. Compound data types such as array and object. Special data types such as null and resource. Null, for example, stores variables without values. The data type determines how much memory it will take up and what actions can be done to it. The getType function, one of the many wondrous functions in PHP, receives a value or variable in its one parameter and tells you what kind of data a variable holds. Here's some code, for example, that shows the getType function working on its parameter, which will find the type of data stored within the S1 variable. It'll return a string. Now, what is a function? Ultimately, a function is a statement of something to do to something else, only when that function is called. Stubborn Fido never comes around until I call it over to give it something, right? Now, what am I giving Fido when I call it over anyway? I may call him over and give him nothing to trick him cruelly. I may also give him a bone. I may give him a bone and scratch his head. That's the same thing with functions. I may give parameters, I may give one parameter, or I may give nothing at all. Parameters are separated by commas. Another cool function is a set type function that takes two parameters. The first is a variable, the second, the data type one chooses, surrounded by quotes. By the way, scalar data types means holding one value, compound data types more than one value, and special is everything else. Because I wanted to learn about references well, I'm covering this twice. This is the first time. References are when you want the variable value to reflect any changes made to it from other variables or functions. You place an ampersand next to the equal sign before the variable's name, or for functions, either in front of the parameter name or before the function name itself. We'll learn more about both functions and references later. This is some example code of how to use a reference, as well as creating your own function. Notice the function keyword, and notice all the ampersands used. The keyword global makes any variable outside of a function retrievable within that function, and that's throughout your code. You use global by writing global before the variable you want to get. Typecasting, aka type switching or juggling, is a way of converting one data type to another data type. Certain rules apply in order to be able to do this. Because PHP is a, quote, weakly typed language, unquote, you can change the type of the value of a variable rather easily. When needed, PHP converts data types in order to complete an operation called automatic type conversion. Because of this, you can change the variable explicitly, either by using parentheses syntax around the new data type's keyword in front of the original variable name with the original data type, or using the setType function with the two parameters of the initial variable and the data type to change it to. This is some example code of that. Notice the variable names, the equal signs, the values that are assigned to them. Also notice how the setType function is used with the two parameters in between the parentheses. I'm echoing out all of the results to output to the browser what the results are, or what type of data it is. Also notice the comments that I've included. These comments are only one line long, so I can use the two forward slashes to delineate that. Very convenient when you want to write little notes to yourself or to any other programmers who you're working with. The following functions will return a Boolean result of 0, not or false, or 1, yes or true, is int, is float, is bool, is string. Remember that these are the four types of scalar data types, is null, and is array. These functions let us know if a variable is the data type we're inquiring